Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Northwest Oklahoma Sports Show. I'm your host, Nick Friesen, current sports writer at the Enid News and Eagle. This episode of the Northwest Oklahoma Sports Show is brought to you by Kinley's Tanning and Boutique in Enid. From custom game day tees and boutique fashion to tanning and red light therapy, they've got everything you need to look good and feel even better. Stop by 2108 West Willow Road or follow online at kinleyscreations.com. Make sure you do what you usually do on Spotify and YouTube on the Northwest Oklahoma Sports Show. On YouTube, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on that bell for notifications so you never miss a video or a podcast. And then on Spotify, make sure you're following the page Northwest Oklahoma Sports Show so you never miss a video or podcast on there as well. Alrighty, we have a fun show planned ahead for you, so let's get right into Northwest Oklahoma Sports. So for our first topic today on the Northwest Oklahoma Sports Show podcast, we're going to be talking about high school football that took place in Northwest Oklahoma this week. We're going to start with the game I went to this Friday night, Enid versus Deer Creek, and Deer Creek just dominated, taking the 65-0 win over Enid on Friday. And just a couple things on this game, not too much, just a couple things. Deer Creek running back Alex Nepking, too much in a rushing attack. He had over 100 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns in a quarter alone, which was pretty remarkable to see. He only did it in one quarter. I didn't have him first snap in the rest of the game or anything, but he was dominant in just, one quarter of play. He made his presence felt in the rushing attack, and, they also had – I think they had a screen pass, too, in that first quarter that went for 20 yards, and he caught the screen pass and just took off then. But, he was dominant. Nepking and, the rest of the Antlers rushing attack, I think they had over 250 yards rushing in the contest, maybe even more. But they were dominant in the rushing game. Something, going into this game that Enid has been struggling with is just tackling in general and, stopping the run. And that was one of the things they focused on during the bye week, which is what Coach Cornelson talked to me about was, they wanted to be more physical in the running game and then also more physical in stopping the run. And so it reared its ugly head again Friday night with Nepking and the Antlers offense just running all over the Plainsman defense. And, another thing there in that game was it was 44-0 at the end of the first quarter, so it was already over then. But there was about 8 plays that kind of just swung in Deer Creek's way. They had, Enid had a couple fumbles on back-to-back kickoffs. Their kickoff return men just, fumbled it on back-to-back kickoffs, and then Deer Creek scored right away after those fumbles and everything. I think one of them was 1 play and another was 2 plays. So Deer Creek took advantage of those opportunities very quickly on their next offensive possessions, and then, they just kind of put it in cruise control then and took the win over Enid. But it's just another game where, the rushing attack for the opposing team was just too much for Enid. And, they'll be looking to fix that next week when they take on Mustang. But, nice showing for Deer Creek and everything. They get their first win of the year. They face some really tough competition their first 3 weeks this season with Bishop McGinnis, Norman North, and Edmond Memorial. But they got the win this one. They moved to 1-3. Enid falls to 0-4. Enid will take on Mustang next week, and so that's going to be another tough matchup. And instead of the running game, I think it'll be the passing game because Mustang has a 5-star quarterback, Jaden O'Neal, who's a Florida State commit, and he's coming back off an injury and everything. So I think it'll be more of the passing attack in that game that Enid has to worry about. But they're going to get back at it. They're going to get rolling again next week, and they're going to face Mustang at 7 p.m. Friday, October 3rd at Mustang High School. So now we're going to talk about the rest of the games that we took a look at in Northwest Oklahoma this week. We're going to start with Chisholm taking on OCS. That was another Squirtle game of the week. In my books, the top 15 showdown in 2A1, and then, a top district showdown in District 2A1-1. Chisholm took the lead at the second quarter with Connor Quintero finding JC for a touchdown pass and to make it, and then they converted on the 2-point to make it 8-0. After that, OCS just took over for the rest of the contest. The connection between Creighton Allen and Hudson Abel in that contest, I know Hudson only had 3 catches for OCS, but all of them, I think, were at least 15 yards plus, and 2 of them were for touchdowns. So Hudson and then Creighton Allen find each other later in the second quarter for a touchdown to make it 8-7 at halftime, and then the running game took over for OCS. Drew Matthews with the 1-yard touchdown run, Atticus Sage with the 4-yard touchdown run, another passing touchdown between Allen and Abel, and they kind of just took over after that. Their physicality and everything. I know some of the stats here: rushing yards for OCS, 233. And then 392 total yards of offense for OCS. So it was just, they took over in the second half after, Chisholm kind of just weathering the storm of OCS's offense in the first half. And, they were being physical on defense in the running game and the passing game. The Longhorns were. But then after that, the Saints just kind of got settled into what they wanted to do and, took advantage of some, mistakes on the Chisholm defense and everything, and then, came away with a 29-8 win over Chisholm. So it's a big win. Coming into that contest, whoever wins that, I thought, is going to get to host a playoff game, the first round of the playoffs. Chisholm can still do it. They got to, win some games here and there with, Mount St. Mary's. They got to win that next week, and then obviously Jones, Millwood, and all those other games there later on in their schedule. But OCS sets them up for a prime position and to host in the playoffs and everything. So congratulations to the Saints. OBA took the 26-22 win over Wacomas. A couple things here. I think, just the two fumbles by Wacomas that were converted into touchdowns for OBA just really stands out and everything. And just the OBA defense once again this week, just standing tall and standing their ground, giving up only 6 points in the first half, and I think they only gave up 0 points against Geary last week. So 6 points and, back-to-back second halves and games is really good. So congratulations to the Trojans. That's a big win. That's just a big win in general, being a tough Wacomas team and everything. Timberlake takes the 52-22 win over Balco Forgan. Kingfisher wins 42-0 over Pauls Valley. Garber takes the 44-6 win over Covington Douglas in the War on 74 rivalry matchup. A couple things here. Just 248 yards rushing for Garber, 360 yards of total offense. That's going to get the job done. Kane Ramsey, Aiden Johnson with 3 touchdown passes in the contest. That's going to get it done in any way, shape, or form, especially against a Covington Douglas team and a Garber team that are kind of just, relying on these, not necessarily just, fresh new faces, but new faces in positions because they've been so experienced in the last couple of years with, Brett Howard on one side and Ford Smith and then, others and everything. But Garber they're one of those teams that once they get rolling during the year and get their offense and find their identity on offense and, once they get their defense rolling too, they're hard to take down, and it looks like they're getting into that shape and form. So congrats to the Wolverines there. O'Keene takes the 58-12 win over Pioneer. Big win for O'Keene there. Ace Long with a rushing touchdown in the contest. William Woolley with the passing touchdown. So congrats to the Whippets. Cassidy takes a 41-14 win over Alva. Fairview over Watonga, 63-18. Medford takes down Oaks Mission 52-6. Cherokee with this is a big win for Cherokee. Cherokee with a 24-16 win over Shattuck. And then Paul Creek Hunter takes down Ringwood 58-0. So those are the scores for this week. What you do next week, I think there's like 4 or 5 teams on a bye week this week. So not a lot of games, but there's some games of interest next week. Obviously, Enid Mustang, Chisholm, and Mount St. Mary's. Can't think of any others on the top of my head. I know OBA played Burns Flattdale City at home at OBA, so that's another game that y'all should tune out for. And, there's a couple other games there that, should have an intriguing matchup and everything. So congratulations to those teams that won this week, and good luck to all the other teams that are playing next week. And I think we're already at week 5, which is bizarre. Week 5 of the regular season. So now we're going to move on to the Garfield County Report. This is some reports on teams in Northwest Oklahoma that had standout weeks during last week. We're going to start with district softball. We're just going to give a whole recap on that because it was a big week for Northwest Oklahoma and district softball and everything. Several teams, stood out, made it to, even when they got beat, they made it to the next day to play in those, if you win, then you play an if necessary game type of things. But congratulations to all the teams that just fought their hearts out and played in this week's edition of the district tournaments in fast pitch softball. It was really fun to watch. I went to several games this week at Pioneer, Wacomas, Garber. So it was fun to watch. A couple teams or several teams that made it to regionals. So Wacomas, Pioneer, Drummond, Garber, and Kremlin Hillsdale have all advanced to regionals for next week. Those brackets, I think they get released Monday or Tuesday, so make sure y'all tune into OSSA.com for those bracket posts. I don't think any of these teams that have advanced will get to host. Maybe one. I don't know. We'll see. But it'll be close if one. I think it's either Drummond. I don't know. I can't remember. But I think one of these teams are close to hosting a regional. So we'll see if one of these do get to host. And, that just creates another advantage because you don't have to travel. You don't have to, get on a bus and travel for maybe 1 to 2 hours every day. So, but those are the teams that advanced to regionals. A couple players that stood out. Rye Bowman for Wacomas was dominant in their regional games. I think they took on Paw Creek Hunter and Yale in those games, and she was lights out. And they actually played all of their district tournament in one day. So we'll just go right here. And they took on Yale in the winners bracket semifinals in their first game in the district tournament. She was dominant. 4 innings, 1 hit, 0 runs, 12 strikeouts. So she really just stifled Yale's offense. And in the next game, took on Pond Creek Hunter, who, beat Yale after Yale had got beat by Wacomas and moved on to this championship of the district and everything. And, Rye Bowman was just dominant once again. 2 hits, 0 runs, and 7 strikeouts in 4 innings and a 10-0 win over the Lady Panthers in the district championship. So she's one of those girls that, once she gets going on the mound, it's pretty hard to stop her and everything. So congratulations to the Lady Chiefs on advancing to a regional. A couple other players that stood out to me were, Abby LaCrone from Kremlin Hillsdale. I know she had just a dominant showing in the district tournament. First game against Mulhall, Orlando, 15-0 win over them, and she had 3 RBIs and 2 hits, and, really was dominant to play with 2 doubles as well. So congratulations to Abby LaCrone and the Kremlin Hillsdale Lady Bronx for advancing to a regional. Drummond took down Thomas in their district. They took them down twice, so pretty convincingly too. Garber took down Depew in their district championship, and it was just another instance where, 5 players had 2 RBIs or more in the contest, and then Aubrey Steinhardt was dominant in the circle. And once you have those 2 combinations going, it's pretty hard to stop if you're Depew. So Wolverines move on. So one other thing, they're 23-5 on the year. I don't think they have been ranked in Class A all year, even though they won like 20 of their last 21 games or something like that. So I don't know. I talked to Coach Hodges after the game on Friday, and they've had this underdog mentality going into every game, and they have like a prove it mentality too. So I think that's been one of the reasons to their success is they always feel like they're like the underdogs because of different situations and stuff like that, but they prove it on the field, and they show that they're one of the top teams in Class A. Pioneer advances to a district championship with a win over Barnesdale on Friday. Delaney Irwin was dominant once again in the circle. Ava Pease had 2 or 3 RBIs in that contest. So, her and Delaney Irwin are 2 combinations that, once they get going, they're pretty successful. Another thing about that Pioneer team is I don't think they have a senior, if I'm correct. They're all juniors, sophomores, or freshmen. And they're really only sophomores and freshmen, too. So, they're just getting a ton of experience right now. That is only going to reap rewards next year, because they could be one of the more dangerous teams next year in Class A. So congratulations to those teams on advancing. Once again, they're going to I don't know if any of them are going to host, but they're definitely going to play in a regional Thursday through Friday next week, and brackets will be released Monday and Tuesday on OSSA.com. So make sure you tune into that website for all your fix on high school fast pitch softball for the rest of the year. So now we're going to talk about the volleyball tournaments that took place this week with the Enid tournament and the Northwest Oklahoma Volleyball Conference tournament out at OBA this weekend. We're going to start with the Enid tournament. Enid comes away in second place in the silver bracket of their tournament and everything. There's a really good, solid Saturday for them. They take down who'd they take down in the first? Sapulpa, that's right. Yeah, Sapulpa in their first match on Saturday, but then they lost a 3-set thriller to Inola in the second match, and it was a really good back and forth type of match against Inola. But they collected the 2-0 win, 25-19, 25-12 over Sapulpa in his first match. Karen Gomez had 5 kills in the match, and then Bailey Daniel and Emma Sullivan each had 2 kills in the second set. They were down 2-0 early in the second set, but the next 7 of the 8 points went to Enid, making it 7-3, and then they just cruised the rest of the way to take the win over Sapulpa. And then in the second one, they lost 2-1 to Inola, 26-24, 23-25, and 8-15. So another solid showing for the Enid Pacers this week, but Bailey Daniel had 11 kills in the contest against Inola, including 5 kills each in the first and second set. Emma Sullivan had 9 kills. And so, I mean, Inola just went on these couple, I think 1 or 2 runs that kind of just, got them a little bit ahead than what the Enid Pacers would have wanted, but got a chance to bounce back Tuesday. It's senior night for their contest against Ponca City, and so for seniors, Lauren Jackson, Emma Sullivan, and Bailey Daniel, it's another chance to, one last chance to play on your home court before the postseason gets going. And, I think they got Ponca, and then they got a conference tourney after that. So good luck to the Enid Pacers. I know they're going to play well this next week against Ponca City and the conference tournament. And then we're going to talk about, OBA's conference tourney this weekend against several teams in the conference on Saturday. So it was another solid day for them. They overall, Corn Bible Academy took home the conference championship in the tournament. They're a solid squad. So they went 5-0 with several wins against really good competition and everything. But, OBA and Chisholm played, and OBA avenged its, lost to Chisholm early in the regular season with a 2-0 win to take the runner-up trophy at the conference tournament on Saturday. Corn Bible Academy, like I said, went 5-0 to take the championship trophy with wins over OBA and Chisholm. OBA went 4-1, had wins over Sharon Mutual, Minko, and Hennessy, and then Chisholm had wins over Minko, Sharon Mutual, and Hennessy as well. So solid showing from, really the conference tournament and then the Enid tournament. There was a lot of good volleyball this weekend with, Corn Bible, and then North Rock Creek was at the Enid tournament. Stillwater was at the Enid tournament. They're always a solid bunch. They kind of just have like this little fun rivalry with Enid, and, they always love playing each other because it's like Francisco said, they have several players that, know each other, then play club volleyball with each other. But, yeah, it was just a fun weekend for volleyball. Great weekend to have it, too. Nothing really else going on in the area. And, everyone got a chance to, check out some great volleyball at Enid and OBA. So congratulations to those teams. Congratulations to OBA on just a solid showing at their conference tournament. The first one, the first edition of that conference tournament. So hopefully they, keep doing that because it looked fun. I was at Enid all day, so I didn't really get a chance to go out there and everything, but Enid's tournament was great. Well, there was solid competition all around between several good teams. So congratulations to the teams that won those volleyball tournaments, and good luck heading into the postseason. So now we're going to switch over to the college ranks for the rest of the Northwest Oklahoma Sports Show. I think we're going to start with OU first. Let's just start with them because I got a lot to talk about with OSU and everything. Just a crazy week for them. So with OU, same day as well with all the stuff that's going down at OSU with OU's John Mateer, the quarterback, gets hurt, has like a little, I guess, like from reports, it was like a thumb injury, just like a finger injury, and he had to have surgery and everything. So he'll be out for an extended period of time. Now, what does that mean? the period of time is a great question because it could either mean after Texas or before Texas. And I think what's pivotal through this whole situation is he had a surgery on like a Tuesday. I think it was either Tuesday or Wednesday this past week during the bye week. And so he has this week to heal up with Kent State and everything. Michael Hawkins is going to start, and quite frankly, they're just going to dominate Kent State because they're a bad football team. But then you have a couple more. You have another week before Texas, but then you have also these 3 days from when it was Wednesday to now today, and I mean that's just huge for his healing process because I personally think he's going to try everything possible to go play against Texas, especially when he hurt this apparently in the first quarter and then played 3 quarters on it against Auburn, and that's remarkable in itself because it was on his throwing hand too, and so the amount of just pressure he was putting on that injury whenever he was throwing the ball is crazy. But yeah, I do think he'll play against Texas. It's just going to be, when is he going to be able to practice that week is the great question because, if he's not going to be able to practice until that in a Texas week, like Thursday or Friday, I don't know if they're going to suit him up then. But if it's back there Tuesday or Wednesday, give him a shot. I would. And I've also heard some situations from some people on the radio where they're like, well, why don't we just put in some packages with him? And I'm telling you right now, if he's out there on the field in these special packages at the goal line or something, he's going to be playing no matter what then at that point. He's going to be a full go then. So they don't need to do that. If he's ready to do that, then he's going to be able to play the whole game. And so I think if, the healing process just goes well, that's all about it with this timing and everything. If it goes well, he's going to be playing against Texas. But it was just, kind of stunning because nobody really thought of it or anything, when it did happen against Auburn. But yeah, tough break for the Sooners if it does, go past the Texas game, but I don't think it will. I think he'll be just fine for that Texas game. And really for the rest of the season in the hopes of getting OU to a college football playoff. So now we're going to talk about what took place in Stillwater this past week. Before we even get to the game, first of all, who cares what happened? Just put that to a side for a little bit. Mike Gundy deserves all the praise that he can get for helping Oklahoma State football to get where it's at. He did a lot for them during his time there, just all those wins over, I think it was 170 wins in his coaching career there. And so he has a resume there, and he has a resume of winning, and he did whatever it took to win. And it was just bizarre that it actually did happen, actually happened, because I knew it was probably going to happen, but it was still just bizarre when all of the news came out that I think it was Tuesday and everything. But, it was just crazy because you never thought, you'd think, oh, yeah, it's going to happen. But you're just you're still stunned, holy crap. Mike Gundy's actually not coaching football anymore at Oklahoma State. And let's just get right down to it. I just personally thought the timing was bad. I really did. I knew it had to happen. But if you play on a Friday against Tulsa, and if you're Chad Weiberg, I think you have to do it on that weekend. I don't know. It was just kind of bizarre, and maybe it was just some logistics things with you gotta get some people in there and that call or everything with Gundy, some board of regents or some people in there with you in case stuff does go down and they do have to do a buyout thing or anything. But it's just weird because you play on a Friday and you wait till Tuesday and then boom, you got to play Baylor, which they lost 45-27. It looked a whole lot better one side of the ball. The other side of the ball, that's a whole other story because their defensive coordinator, Todd Grantham, just got fired. So, that's a whole other story too. And quite frankly, that needed to happen too. And it's just going to be a whole reset this offseason, which, if you're thinking about it and just everything that Mike Gundy did, that's probably what was going to happen, was just a full reset of the program and everything, and, whatever. Doug Meacham has been named the interim coach, and his offense looked really good in that game against Baylor, but it just looked like the playbook was opened up a little bit more, and kind of just makes you wonder, did Gundy have some pushback on opening up the offense? Who knows? Maybe not, but it just looked a whole lot better with Doug Meacham actually fully calling the, I know he's been calling the plays, but just fully opening up the game plan. And it's like you said during the week, he just wanted his players to have fun this weekend, and I think his offensive players did have fun this weekend. So congrats, just for a solid showing, because it was bad there after that Tulsa game, and people were wondering, is it just going to be a blowout every year? But it was just a solid showing for what had happened this week for Oklahoma State against Baylor. But a couple other things on this. The $15 million buyout. Sounds like they have the money ready to go for it. Why don't we just put that into the revenue and the NIL stuff? But whatever. But I think it is. But they could just pull it out from there, from that budget at $15 million. Side note, Gundy probably will never coach again at all. So with that kind of money, that's just crazy. But yeah, if you have that money ready to go, no more nonsense of Oklahoma State doesn't have any money or anything, because that just shows you do have some money and everything. That they have that $15 million, just not probably ready to go, fully ready, but enough to where they can pay it out and everything. One big just broad topic on this is Mike Gundy is a football coach at his core, but I do agree with some of these people on the radio and just talking to people. This is more than just football right now. The stuff that transpired after the Oregon game with his son and everything, and then the comments to fans last year, where there was some pushback, honestly, from some fans, and just comments from the past several years of just off the field issues and stuff and everything. This was more than just football. I know they don't want to say that, and I know they probably won't say that, but it was. And he kind of did it to himself. Mike Gundy did. But I just think it was just more than just football. It wasn't just because, oh man, just the wins and losses. That was a part of it. Don't get me wrong. The two seasons these past 2 years, it was a part of it. But just some of these things that have been building up over the last several years, that played a part in it too. Now, if he said that stuff he did last year about the fans and they were 10-2 or 11-1, playing in the Big 12 championship and maybe even winning it and then going to a playoff, shoved it under the rug. It would have been shoved under the rug because it was Mike Gundy. Just a fact. It would have, because they're winning, and winning triumphs everything. But with all the crap that's been put on the field this year, and then on top of that, all the stuff that's been said in the offseason, played a part in it. And it's really, sad that played a part in it. And it was just strictly based off performance, because performance was one thing, but the other stuff was another thing. I think one more thing on this that we'll move on. Let's talk about some of the replacements. I think G.J. Keene from Texas State is one of those guys that you just take a look at and you're like, boom, put that on a short list of head coaches. Obviously, Zach Robinson is another one of those guys. And there was a report today from, I think it was Ian Rappaport or Schefter or one of them, stating like, yeah, he's on one of those short list of coaches. I just think if Zach Robinson can turn that offense around at Atlanta, and he's been doing some of that, not much, but some. But if he can fully turn it around, I just don't think he will move on from the NFL then. Because I think he will get a bigger role in the NFL at that point. Whether that's another coordinator position at another like marquee NFL team or a head coaching job. Because that could be one thing too. But I also do think alma mater and coaching for your alma mater is one thing too. So they could have some tie in with that. I do think they'll have to pay him a little bit to come back down to college because he is just I'm offensive coordinator, whatever. He is one of the up and coming offensive coordinators in the NFL right now, point blank. And so if he does good at Atlanta, then he's going to either go somewhere else in the NFL or a head coaching job in the NFL. Period. End of story. So they're going to have to pay a little bit to get Zach Robinson back down from the NFL. But like I said, him and Keene, Colin Klein from Texas A&M, their offensive coordinator, obviously played at Kansas State. Boy, that would be a shot in the heart to them. But played quarterback at Kansas State, was really successful in his career at the Big 12. Trying to think of other names, really. Nothing really just like stands out. I know there are some like stupid rumors about John Gruden and everything. Just stop with that. Honestly, it looks like John Gruden's having a heck of a time at Barstool just doing that stuff. And that's good for him because if he's having fun doing that, then he doesn't need to do anything else. But yeah, I mean, 3 right now would be GJ Keene, Zach Robinson, and Colin Klein for me. Those are the 3 guys I'd look to go get. I know there's been some names about Dabo Swinney. Just some like little, I guess you would say, home run hire for them. Which, in honesty, yeah, it would be for Dabo. But here's the thing. You got 2 guys that are basically the same when it comes to NIL and the transfer portal. They don't like it. Gundy doesn't like it. Dabo doesn't like it. So I think, yeah, you would get the big marquee name, but you would just get the same, philosophy. But you could attract some like recruits or anything in, but you would just get the same philosophy with hate the portal, don't like NIL, and you've already let it get past you in the terms of the new age of college football. And that's what's happened with Dabo and Mike Gundy. They have let NIL and transfer portal take over their coaching careers in college football. And that's what's ultimately led to Gundy getting fired and several others getting fired this year in college football already. But I think if you can get Zach Robinson in here, that would just create an enormous amount of presence just for just revenue, donors, money, just to name a few things. And then obviously he would be a good recruiter because he's coaching the NFL. He knows how to get talent to the NFL and knows how to coach talent, fresh talent out of the draft in the NFL. So I think those are my 3 replacements. Like I said, there's probably several other names on there, but those 3 of Keene, Colin Klein, and oh gosh, I just forgot about his name. Gosh, I can't remember what I was talking about. Oh gosh, dude. I can't remember his name. Holy crap. Brain fog right there. But yeah, I mean, those 3 replacements right there is who I'd go with. And yeah, it was just overall for me that day when it happened, it was just bizarre. Obviously, like I was with several others, it was just crazy that it actually did happen, that he actually got fired. Didn't think it would ever come to that, just based off of my time there in college at Oklahoma State and just, seeing those years in 2021 and 2023 of them just, grinding it out and having successful, awesome years. 2021 was awesome. 2023 was special too. Just seeing Ollie Gordon in that rushing attack just run all over people. 2021 was a combination of just toughness, grit, and just the desire to win at all costs. And the perfect example of that was Bedlam 2021. And that defense, it was actually like awesome to watch them play defense in 2021. This year it's terrible, but 2021 was truly awesome for Oklahoma State. And just, the atmosphere there during that year was awesome. But, times have changed. Transfer portal, NIL have taken over this sport. And honestly, Gundy let it catch up to him, and that's why he's gone. But I did like the showing on Saturday against Baylor. I know they lost, but it was a solid showing. So hopefully they can go up to Tucson next week and get a W. I think they can. I don't think, there's some people after the Tulsa game, they're never going to win another game this year. I think they can beat Arizona, honestly. Their defenses can string a few stops and get some, key plays on offense. I think they can win that game. I really do. So hopefully they can, and, just move on past this like crazy week of the Gundy firing. Todd Grantham got fired, a defensive coordinator. That's another story for another day. First of all, that had to happen because their defense was terrible. But we'll see where it goes from there with the defense and just Oklahoma State football as a whole. So now we have moved to the rant of the week. This is a topic I picked in the sports world, not really Northwest Oklahoma, and I rant and give my take on it. We're going to talk about the Ryder Cup that just ended like a couple hours ago. So Europe retains it, actually outright wins it. So that's terrible. I just got a couple things on that. The USA, just show up every once in a while on Friday and Saturday. Just one time, show up on the 4-ball and the other events that happen on Friday and Saturday. That's all you got to do is just show up. Don't get beat 3-1 twice. That's it. If you don't get beat 3-1 twice, you might end up winning the Ryder Cup today in the singles matches. Because holy cow, they were awesome in those singles matches. Europe only won one of those. Tied on like 3, and then USA won the rest of them. Like, that's bizarre. And it would have been the biggest comeback in Ryder Cup history. And they were down by 7. 7 going into Sunday's matches. And it didn't look good. But they made it a game. They made it a Ryder Cup. But they didn't have to if they just showed up on Friday and Saturday. I think just some of those players just don't suit well in the Friday and Saturday events. One of those guys in particular is Scotty Scheffler. One of the people on NBC was talking about, like Scotty likes to dictate the PGA Tour event, basically, the tournament. His pace, his style. He likes to dictate what's going on in his round at all times. Something that Tiger Woods did very well and won him all those events and those majors. I think when Scotty gets in those things, it's just he kind of gets to dictate it when he can, though. It's like when he can, he tries to, and then it's too little too late. And plus Europe their putting was awesome the first 2 days. So give it up to them because they earned the Ryder Cup win in those first 2 days. I don't think they earned it today because USA came out on fire and made it a Ryder Cup. But I think, and someone also said this too about just USA and their team in general, and I kind of agree with him, and this is my thought on it. I think they really do care about it. I really do think they do. Because coming into this event, they were, now it's Europe's won 11 of the last 15, 6 of the last 8 Ryder Cups, and they really, it showed to me that they really wanted to turn this thing around and go on a little run of 2, 4, 6 plus years of just straight up winning the Ryder Cup. But I think when it just becomes to that point where it's almost eating at your stomach, basically, to where it's like every single shot on Friday and Saturday just felt like a most like a opportunity they had to capitalize on. And you just can't do that. And I think that's because they put so much pressure on themselves going into those events, USA does, that it just eats at them. And it makes the match within itself just much more harder for them. And I don't think it has to be like that. I think they just Europe showed a lot of poise and calm, especially with Shane Lowry and Rory McIlroy on Saturday, because some of the stuff that was being tweeted out that was said towards them, not good. Not good look for us as Americans. Not at all. And the way they were just, their calm demeanor, their poise, they're mature in those stages, except when Rory McIlroy went off, and which rightfully so, he won the hole and let the American fans hear it, which he had every right to do that because of some of the stuff that was said. It had been boiled up inside of him that it was finally too much to overcome, and he just had to let out all of his emotions. But yeah, back to my just main point. I think they just put so much pressure on themselves, the Americans do, that it just boils down and eats at them during those Friday and Saturday matches, that it just nothing happens because they think every shot, which it does, but I mean every shot to them just felt like it had to be a must opportunity to do something because Europe was putting great. Tommy Fleetwood and Justin Rose, John Rahm those first 2 days, obviously Rory. They were just playing out of their minds those first 2 days. Tommy Fleetwood especially. I was surprised when Justin Thomas won that match today. I really was, because I thought Tommy Fleetwood was just going to destroy him. But yeah, get going. Just get going the first 2 days, USA. Also, another side point about this on the Rant of the Week. What are we doing, NBC, with this coverage? This coverage was terrible. Honestly terrible. Especially the first 2 days. So it was on USA Network on Friday. You only have 4 matches going on at the time in the morning. 2 from USA, 2 from Europe. So 4. So you really only have 16 players out there. How in the world can we not have every shot on there? Why are we going from their tee shot to the green and then having to talk about what they did on their second shot? Show them hitting their shots, each of their shots. There's 16 players on the course. I don't know why I'm mad about this, but I am, because there really wasn't much going on the course at the time. There wasn't 100 some players on the course like in PGA Tour events. There was only 16. So they could have found a way to show every shot on there. I don't care if it's a 4-box or whatever. But I digress on that because USA, man, the comeback was real on Sunday. It really was, but it wasn't enough because of the first 2 days and what happened on Friday and Saturday. So shout out Europe, USA. Just do better in the first 2 days in those events, and you will reap the rewards on Sunday. So that'll do it for another edition of the Northwest Oklahoma Sports Show podcast. A lot of stuff that we talked about there. Just high school sports, college, OSU, OU, and then the Ryder Cup. Lots of good stuff this weekend. Really happy with all the coverage that we did at News and Eagle too. Just the overall, coverage of district tournaments, and then football on Friday. This weekend with volleyball, that was awesome. And so really happy with what we did at the Enid News and Eagle, just overall coverage this past week with all the stuff going on. And so make sure you tune in next week. Another great edition of it. Just more postseason softball At that point, when we're recording, we would know if some of those teams in Northwest Oklahoma made it to the state tournament. So that would be awesome. Several teams, I think, that can make a bid for that. I really do, because I think some of these teams are tested in Northwest Oklahoma. And so when they go and face some of those other teams and, wherever in the state, I think they're tested, and I think they will have a good showing at those regional appearances. But yeah, make sure you tune in next week. Another edition of just postseason softball and then high school football, as always. Whatever happens between OU and the OSU games, and just another edition of the Rant of the Week. Shout out the USA team. You just got to do better, point blank. Don't screw it up in the first 2 days, and you don't have to do that on the final day. But yeah, make sure you tune in next Saturday or Sunday next week. I don't know when I'm going to be able to record it, but as always, what you do on Spotify and YouTube, on Spotify, make sure you're following the page so you don't miss any of the new videos of the Northwest Oklahoma Sports Show podcast. And then on YouTube, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on the bell for notifications, and do whatever else on YouTube so you don't miss another edition of this podcast and other videos on there. And we're in the thick of it right now, ladies and gentlemen, with softball, volleyball, postseasons, and then football. And then before you know it, it'll be high school basketball. And I can't wait for this year, because I think there's a team in Northwest Oklahoma that can make a deep run to the Class C state championship. No, Class B, which would be pretty remarkable for that town if they were able to do that. And so basketball season will be here before you know it. But make sure you tune in next weekend for another edition of the Northwest Oklahoma Sports Show podcast. Until next time, keep doing what you're doing, Northwest Oklahoma sports fans. Go out and show your support for Northwest Oklahoma sports teams.